Didn't escape the rain, but beautiful people, beautiful conversations, and beautiful opportunities to share spiritual wisdom. So this evening we're kind of doing just that. And what I'm going to try and do is share with you some thoughts, ideas, reflections on perhaps something that we all experience in our life, perhaps something that is a fear within each one of us, and that's the fear of failure. And what I'll do is I won't speak too long. I'll maybe share a few ideas with you, and I'd love to hear your reflections, your questions, your thoughts as we try and elevate our consciousness. Just a little bit of my human journey behind all the facts and figures. I began reading spiritual wisdom, I guess seriously, at about the age of 15 or 16. And had the opportunity to connect with monks. Some of my friends told me, watch out for the guys in orange. Spiritual wisdom is powerful. And I said, no, don't worry, I'm a balanced person, you know. Anyway, ended up like this. But it was a great journey to converse with the monks as I was young and having many questions about life, about the future, about what success really is and what the purpose of life really is. And through my university years, my hunger grew. And at the age of 21, I went to India and spent more time exploring spirituality and then became a monk in London. And I kind of continue that journey today, learning on travels and learning from many different people. So yeah, I'll share with you some of the ideas that I've picked up on failure. I failed in many things in my life and hopefully learned a bit more about how to accept failure and work through failure with grace. So I'll share some of those ideas with you. I'll just begin by saying a few short Sanskrit prayers. This just helps us to bring our hearts and minds fully to the room we're in today. And just an opportunity to also offer gratitude to all the spiritual giants who have come before us to share this knowledge with great compassion and clarity for our benefit. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asyatyadeshakarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you so much. In life we have many fears. We're fearful about what's happened in the past. We're fearful about the future. Oftentimes we're fearful about our health, about our career. When we're sad, we're fearful it will never end. When we're happy, we fear it will end. And therefore, the ancient Bhagavad Gita, Sanskrit text, actually explains that fear is one of the emotions which is underpinning the human experience. Sometimes this fear acts as like a cloud. Remember those cartoons where like everything was sunny, but the person was like walking around with a cloud over their head? So sometimes our life is like that. This fear is kind of moving with us at every step and overshadowing our lives. And perhaps of all the fears we have, the fear of failure is perhaps the most limiting fear that we have. There may be so many beautiful things that we're capable of. There may be so many opportunities on the horizon. We may have so much potential that's waiting to be unleashed. But when this fear of failure is overshadowing us, we can't move in that direction. Before we begin today, I just want you to turn to the person next to you, just literally for 1 minute, and share with them something you feel you should be doing in your life, or you should have done in your life, but you didn't, or you're not doing, because you're fearful of failing. Can you do that for 1 minute? What are you stopping yourself from, or have you stopped yourself from because you're fearful of failure? It could be small or big, something. Don't be shy, turn to the person next to you. Alright, so maybe we can get you back. Thank you so much for sharing with each other. Anyone want to shout out some of the fears of failure lurking in your mind and consciousness? Yes. Taking a responsibility, a fear of taking a responsibility. Maybe I won't be able to be consistent. Maybe I won't rise to the challenge. Maybe I'll make a mistake. Yes?
Fear of the risk that it might work or might not.
Okay, fear of the risk that it may work or it may not work. And often what goes with that is the fear of embarrassment. Because what will everyone else think if you try something and you fall flat on your face? How will they see you? That embarrassment sometimes is a fear. What else? Yes?
Fear that we won't reach that potential that we always thought we could be capable of.
Okay, so fear that we'll go on the journey, but we won't make it there. Again, fear of falling short. Yes. What kind of things have you not done because of fear? Can you tell me some of the things that you would have done if that fear of failure wasn't there? Is that hand?
I was just going to say fear of not coming from Krishna conscious background, fear of re-assimilating myself to getting past what I've been through, and who is that person on the other side of the trauma and the sadness and tears, and if I didn't have that history, where would I be now? And fear of what's on the other side, because I've learnt to live and have my guarding mechanisms because of my past hurt.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, fears that we may not be able to break out of past trauma, past limiting thoughts, past mindsets, that we won't be able to evolve into what we can and should be, and that, that sense of being imprisoned by previous experiences. Thank you. What kind of things would you have done if you had no fear of failure in your life? Just shout out to me some of the things. If you woke up tomorrow and you had no fear of failure, what would you do?
Push for promotion.
Push for a promotion. Thank you. Tell me, what would you do tomorrow if you woke up and you had no fear of failure? Yes. Give a class, public speaking. The 3 biggest fears in life: death, exams, and public speaking. What else would you do if you had no fear? Just imagine, you woke up tomorrow, you had no fear of failure. What would you do? Start business. Okay. What else?
Preaching.
Share spiritual knowledge with others. What else?
Traveling around the world.
Travel around the world.
I want a date.
What was that? Buy some crypto. Thank God you have some fear of failure. See, the reason I'm just stimulating this thought in you, I just want you to think, because fear of failure rests within all of us. And sometimes we're not even conscious that this fear of failure is holding me back, but it's unconsciously holding us back. And sometimes when you ask yourself that question, if I woke up tomorrow with no fear of failure, what would I do? It helps you to understand where you're holding back.
Love without expectations.
Love, love, love. How many of you are holding back in the potential of a relationship because of fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear that it may not work out? That's also definitely requires a lot of vulnerability, isn't it? So actually, you can do this again when you go home. Just ask yourself that question. If I woke up tomorrow with no fear of failure, what would I do? What would I not hesitate to pursue? And this idea of being immune to failure and being unaffected by failure is a recurrent theme within the ancient text Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the beautiful verses that Krishna speaks to Arjuna to kind of reinstill confidence with him that he can walk his path in life. In Sanskrit, Krishna says, Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyatva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Mochate. There's so much in the world today about yoga. But this is one way in which Krishna defines what is yoga. Yoga is a complete balance, not just a physical balance, but it's a complete balance of one's consciousness. And what Krishna says to Arjuna, he says, perform your duty. Each one of us in this world have a duty. We could say each one of us have in Sanskrit what we call a dharma. And in more contemporary language, each one of us have a purpose. And so what Krishna says is, follow your purpose, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So when you're actually in yogic consciousness, you have the complete detachment from success or failure. And when you become detached from success or failure, you actually begin to achieve incredible things in life. There are certain paradoxes in the world. Like say, for example, one paradox of the world is if you go slower sometimes, you can end up going faster. Another paradox of the world is if you sometimes consume less information, you can actually be more informed about life. Another paradox of the world sometimes is if you speak less, sometimes you can say more. Tell that to your wife or husband. And another paradox of the world is if you embrace more failure, you know what's going to happen, right? You have more chances of success. And so the Bhagavad Gita helps us to look at the world counterintuitively, and while the whole world is running away from failure, while the whole world is limiting themselves because of the fear of failure, Bhagavad Gita says if you become totally okay with failure, then you can actually do incredible things in life. And what I'm going to try and share with you today, I'm not going to speak too long, but I'm going to show you 3 mindsets that the Bhagavad Gita teaches us about failure. And then I'm going to see whether that triggers any thoughts in you and see what kind of questions you may have. The first reason why the Bhagavad Gita says don't be worried about failure is because failure is never final. Sometimes we're undergoing something and we think, oh, if I fail, that's it, all over, game over, finished. It's the end of the story. But the Bhagavad Gita explains that each one of us have a gift which is eternally intact. And that gift is the gift of free will. And that gift of free will means that at any point in our life, we can say, this is not how the story is going to end. At any point in our life, we can change the course of how things are going. In other words, according to the Bhagavad Gita, you never reach a dead end in your life. Please remember this statement. Where you are doesn't define who you are. Where you are in your life doesn't define who you are. It's just a point in time. And sometimes what happens is in our life, many paths close. And we feel like we're being limited. But actually, what happens is the path we do end up taking opens up thousands and hundreds of other paths. In other words, failure is never final. Failure is just perhaps taking you to another door of opportunity. And that door of opportunity can open out into hundreds of other doors of opportunity. Brian Acton resigned from Yahoo in 2009. And after Brian Acton resigned from Yahoo, he went to try and get a job at Twitter. And what happened? He failed. But what did he do? He took the failure with grace. That evening, after he had come back from the failed interview, he wrote on Twitter, got denied by Twitter, HQ. That's okay. Would have been a long commute. He took the failure with grace. A few months later, Brian Acton went for an interview at Facebook. What happened? Rejected. Failure. And what did he do? Just look at the date. Facebook turned me down. It was a great opportunity to connect with some fantastic people. Looking forward to life's next adventure. After Brian Acton got turned down by Facebook, he thought, all these failures are leading me to something. Maybe I should invent my own thing. And Brian Acton ended up inventing WhatsApp. WhatsApp is now used by nearly 4 billion people in the world. And what Brian Acton did is, after being turned down by Facebook in 2009 for a job, he went back to Facebook and he sold them WhatsApp for $20 billion. Hare Krishna. There's something, isn't it? The ability to take failure with grace. When we fail in our life, we become so depressed. We become so down. We become so self-defeated. But we don't realize that every time we're failing, it's actually providence guiding us to something much greater, because failure is not final. And this is what Krishna is teaching Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that at every moment one has free will. At every moment we can turn the ship around and move in a more progressive direction. It only depends on one's consciousness and one's mentality. So the first way in which you can become totally okay with failure is to realize failure is not final. It's just a point in time. The second thing that Krishna teaches us in the Bhagavad Gita is that not only is failure not final, but failure is not actually that bad. Failure might actually be very good. It might be an amazing elixir that tastes a little bit bitter, but an elixir which builds you up and increases your potentiality to do amazing things in the world. Sometimes people are successful, but that success is actually a failure. And sometimes people fail, but if they learn that failure is not bad, and it's actually teaching me something amazing, that failure is the pillar of their future contribution. Success can lead to failure because what it can sometimes do is breed a mentality of complacency. I got it down, I'm doing good, I've achieved it, I am there. Success only reconfirms what you know, but failure forces you to grow. And therefore, in failure, if it helps you to develop urgency, if it helps you to overcome complacency, then it's actually very, very good. Success can make you proud, and failure can make you humble. Humility, the word humility comes from the Latin humus, which means soil. Within the heart of a humble person, the fertility is there for things to grow. But when you're proud, what do they say in colloquial English? They're full of it. And full of it means there's no room for anything else to go in. And therefore your success, if it makes you proud, it will actually bring your downfall. But your failure, if it makes you humble, it will actually open you up to achieving much greater things. Success can make you attached. You kind of think, I know it, I got it down, I just got to stay on this path, and what it can do is stifle your creativity. Because when you're successful, sometimes you don't want to move an inch out of that in case the success breaks. But when you're failed, you've got nothing to lose. So you become detached. And you say like, well, let's try anything. Can't get much worse than this. And in that detachment, you actually develop a creativity which allows you to discover something much greater. Success can cause one to become self-centered, thinking everything was done by them and dependent on them. But failure can help you realize there are factors beyond my control, factors in the universe which are conspiring in terms of where my future goes, and maybe I need to connect with these factors and broaden my horizon of what's controlling fortunes in the world. Maybe I'm not in control of everything, and maybe if I explore what is out of my control, it might actually give me more progression. Do you begin to see how failure is not bad? Because if failure helps you to develop all of these qualities, then these are the qualities which will actually take one to the highest potential. And therefore, Krishna says, not only is failure not final, failure is not bad. Because in failure, so many gifts come. Therefore, the most creative people, the biggest change makers in the world, the highest achievers, often are proportionately the ones who also failed the most. And the final point I'll share with you is perhaps the most profound point. That actually, from one perspective, failure is not final. From another perspective, failure is not bad. But from the deepest spiritual perspective, failure is not actually possible. According to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, there's no way you can actually be a failure. Why? Because there are two dimensions of success. When we put our effort and endeavor into trying to achieve something in this world, on one side there's an external result. So say, for example, someone tries to start a business. So what happens is when you start that business, you put a lot of effort into it, and then there's an external result. That maybe you get the success and profit that you're looking for, and that external result is visible to the whole world. Your company flies, your name is in lights, and you rise up the ladder of popularity. And that external result is dependent on your endeavor, but also on destiny. Because many people try to start a company, many people put the effort in, but only some will succeed externally. That means there are other factors controlling. So, failure is possible externally, success is possible externally. But what Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita is when you put endeavor and effort into something, there's also an internal result. The whole world just measures success by external results. But most of the world don't understand that if you put your endeavor and effort into something, if you act with intention, if you act with attention, if you act with nobility, with character, and you give the best of yourself in trying to do something, then what happens? You get an internal result. And that result is invisible. That's a result which is impacting on your consciousness and your character. And that invisible result isn't dependent on anything outside of your control. It's only dependent on your own endeavor. What I'm basically showing you on this slide is an ancient principle called karma yoga. Have you heard of this? Karma yoga? Karma yoga means the science of spiritual action. The science of karma yoga tells us that success is not in results. Success is in the effort and the endeavor and the intention and the attention with which you do something. In other words, whatever thing you try to do in this world, if you do it in good spiritual consciousness with good character, you will always get the internal result, and you may or may not get the external result, but in this you will always be successful. And so, you can never fail. Because the world only understands one dimension of success, but the deeper success is the internal success. And so, when Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is telling Arjuna, just be okay with failure, you may look at that and think, but how can I be okay with failure? It's so hard. Therefore, these three sutras, always remember them. Failure is not final. One door has to close in order for another door to open. One chapter has to end in order for another chapter to begin. Sometimes, every single time, the universe is saying no. It's because the universe is leading you to a bigger yes. Failure is not final. Failure is not bad. Because if you learn to take failure with grace, if you learn to draw the lessons that failure is teaching you, then actually failure is what builds you up to your greatest potential. And failure, in the deepest sense, according to the science of karma yoga, is not actually possible, because if you act with intention and attention, you'll always be successful internally. You'll always improve, you'll always grow, you'll always advance in your character and consciousness. And in that way, you are successful. And so, if we deeply meditate on these points, you can actually wake up tomorrow and be totally okay with failure. And if you do, I guarantee you, money back, even though I'm broke. You'll do something amazing. And amazing doesn't necessarily mean you'll do something huge like Brian Acton. You'll do something amazing to make a beautiful contribution to this world, to touch someone's heart, to actually develop your spiritual happiness. We have to try to break out of this cloud which is hanging over our head, this fear of failure. Krishna says to Arjuna, perform your duty, follow your purpose, don't be held back. Because if you learn the art of abandoning all attachment to success or failure, Arjuna, you'll be situated in the equanimity which is yoga. Yoga is not just physical. Yoga is a balancing of one's consciousness and a balancing which allows one to fulfill what they are meant to do in this chapter of life. Thank you very much.
Can you please join me again? A big round of applause for this song. So we've got a few minutes to take questions. As I said, Maharaj is very personable, so...
Thank you for your talk. I resonate with the 3 points you made around failure. I think the part that I struggle with the most is the last one, being failure is not possible. I think the main immediate thought was around when I fail and it has an impact on others. So I can rationalize on a personal level, but if I have a negative impact, and I feel guilt in how I treat others, that's something that I will, at this moment in time, see as an internal failure. So I guess, I'm keen for your thoughts.
Thank you so much. That's so... Well, I think firstly, that's credit to your personality to be so sensitive and to also feel responsible for the people around you. I think that is a hallmark of good character. As we go deeper into spiritual teachings, we understand that we are not in control of everything in this world. Sometimes people feel that to be disempowering. You're not in control, and we feel like, now I'm disempowered. But according to the Bhagavad Gita, there is divinity, and divinity is overseeing everything and contributing towards our fortunes and the results of how things pan out. And therefore, when one goes to bed at night, if one can say, I tried my best, and if life still conspires or transpires in a different way according to one's plan, and it seems like a failure, we have to understand that there's a benevolent divinity which is engineering the future. And therefore, even that seeming failure is actually for the best. And when we have that faith that there is something which is moving the fortunes of our life beyond our control, that we have a relationship with, of love, then it helps us to understand that once we've done our best, whatever transpires is always for the best. And even when it seemingly impacts others, we have to understand that from that, beautiful things will come. So we have the tendency to judge everything in the moment. And this is perhaps one of our biggest weaknesses. But life is a cycle. Good things turn into seeming bad things, which bring about good things, which bring about bad things. Life is constantly moving like a wave. And so, the Bhagavad Gita will go on to talk about how there is a benevolent divinity which is overseeing things and causing things to transpire in a certain way. And that gives one a peace of mind to understand, I've done my best. Now if it goes in a different direction, it's going like that for a reason. Maybe I can't see it, but there's something behind it. Something. Thank you. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. There and then.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk, man. It was very beautiful. I had a question. In the Gita, it says, Krishna says, the one who surrenders unto me and devotes himself to me, I take care of all his or her needs, or something like that. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. But I was wondering, like, how does that work? Yeah.
Is it true?
It's a broad question.
So the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining that when one has a sense of surrender to that divinity, that supreme person, to Krishna himself, Krishna says, he says different things, but at one point he, for example, says, I carry what they lack, I preserve what they have, I remove their obstacles, I provide. So how does that exactly happen? Well, in our life, we'll encounter different fortunes. In our life, we'll encounter different people. In our life, we'll encounter different experiences. And none of it is random. And what Krishna, or what divinity is doing is through every experience, through every event, through every interaction, through every relationship, divinity is actually delivering us what we need. The people that you're surrounded by in your life are not random. They're there to teach you something. Even the mother-in-law. Everyone is there for a reason. Every event we go through is for a reason. Every fortune, sometimes we receive things way beyond our expectation. And sometimes we're receiving challenges and obstacles way beyond our expectation. And the idea is that all of these are part of the ingredients of divinity to actually give us what we need to discover our spiritual nature and discover what real happiness actually is. So when Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, I provide them everything they need, it's kind of in this context, that everything in our life is meaningful, nothing is random. Does that help?
Hello, thank you for
Hi there.
speaking tonight. This is the first time I've come to anything like this, so it's all new to me. I resonate with the message. I have a question for you. Sometimes the challenge I face is we don't realize that we've failed, and we need to take a moment to kind of reflect on it. And because sometimes I fail and I want that to serve me, I want that to serve me so I can help others. And so my question for you is, when we're confronted with failure, what are some of those self-reflection questions we should be asking of ourselves in that moment to ensure that we've taken that failure and we've used it to help us? For example, if we're journaling or anything, do you have any thoughts about that?
Thank you so much. Such a good question. Yeah. So when we do go through that failure, what are the kind of questions we should be asking ourselves so that we do grow from that situation? I think the first thing we can ask ourselves is, if I was to do this again, what could I have done differently? Where could I have maybe put more attention? What could I have perhaps invested more into? Sometimes it's just a matter of looking at the quality of our endeavor and effort and just asking ourselves, did I really do my best? And the best means, I tell people, to act with your hand, your head, and your heart. Oftentimes we act with our hands, we're active, but we don't act with our head, our intelligence. We don't give the best of that. Sometimes we act with our hand and our head, but it's lacking the heart, it's lacking the intention, that sincerity. So in failure, what I often do is I ask myself, where was I lacking? Was it in hand, head, heart? Was it in all of them? And that helps us to understand how we can craft a better endeavor for the future. Journaling is a beautiful art. I myself journaled for the last 25 years now. And that really helps us to do this kind of introspection and soul searching. So I would definitely recommend that. And the other thing I would recommend, which I think we don't do enough of in today's world, is have a coach, have a mentor, have a guide, have someone who can give you feedback. Because feedback is the breakfast of champions. Nowadays in the world, there's this kind of notion that I'm going to be a self-made person. I don't need any help. But actually, in all spiritual tradition and in the lives of all great people, you'll see this as a common thread, that they all took help from other people because it's difficult to see the picture when you're inside the frame. And oftentimes, in the chaos of our own emotions and failure, we don't have the presence of mind to do that kind of soul searching, to ask those questions. But when we have someone who knows us, who loves us, and who has enough of an elevated consciousness to guide us, then they can actually help us to understand what we're meant to learn from that failure. An African proverb says, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk with many. So, that could also be. Is that right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes? No, just tell me when you're out.
Hare Krishna. I was reflecting on one of your previous lectures which I heard. Probably you could speak a few words about that. So what I was trying to understand is, when we encounter failure, is it good to reflect on our definition of what is success? Maybe our definition of success is wrong, because I've seen you talking a lot about redefining, are you living when we encounter failure? So are we living what is actually successful for us, or are we living somebody else's definition for success? So if you could speak a few words about that, it would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oftentimes, failure and our perception of failure is inaccurate because also our definition of success is inaccurate. In the world today, they say if you tell a lie loud enough and long enough, that lie becomes a so-called truth. If enough people accept that so-called truth, it becomes a culture. And if that culture perpetuates from one generation to the next, it becomes a tradition. And then people are born into a tradition where there's a definition of success, which is based on a culture, which is based on a so-called truth, that's actually a lie. And therefore, we're surrounded by opinions, we're surrounded by expectations, we're surrounded by trends and traditions. We're told by 28, if you haven't done this, you're a failure. And we're told if you don't have enough of this and you haven't achieved that, then you're a failure. And we may say, no, I don't ascribe to any of that. But psychologically, We're driven to act in certain ways because the world has taught us success is this, 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 and this. And therefore, spiritual people have the common characteristic of regularly disconnecting themselves from the messages of the world. When I went to India, one yogi, I asked him for an advice, and he said, every year disconnect for 1 month. Every month, disconnect for 1 day. And every day, disconnect for 1 hour. Then he looked at me and said, disconnect to connect. I was like, you should be on TEDx. But I try to follow that in my life, even to this day. Every year, disconnect for a month. Go to a completely different habitat. Reflect, introspect, explore your inner world. Every month, disappear for a day. Don't take your distraction device with you. And just realign with your highest principles. And every single day, ideally, before the world starts moving, disconnect for at least an hour and ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to achieve in my life? What is my purpose? Because what happens is if we don't spend that time disconnecting, then the opinions, the expectations, the trends and traditions begin to overpower our real understanding of what success is. And so yes, spending time to redefine success. Because they say the worst type of success is when you achieve all of your goals and then realize there was somebody else's goal. Oh no! Many people, myself included, have felt that.
So we'll have 3 more questions, but I've got a virtual question. Someone asked, what do you do when you're lost and not sure what to do or where to go?
What to do when you're lost and you're not sure where to do or where to go? What to do
and where to go?
The first thing I would say is that sometimes material breakdowns lead to spiritual breakthroughs. Pain has a purpose. Problems can lead to progress. And therefore the first mistake that we often make is that when we feel lost, when we feel confused, when we feel like, I don't know where I'm going in my life, what we do is we drown ourselves into a deeper and deeper depression, rejection. Actually, that feeling of being confused, that feeling of not knowing where you're meant to go, that feeling that I don't know what my purpose is actually the greatest thing. Because it's in those moments that you can actually ask, explore, and actually discover what your deeper purpose actually is meant to be. Einstein said, never stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. And so I would say when someone is lost, that's the time more than ever to ask questions, to explore, to go into environments that perhaps previously I never went into, to try to challenge yourself with different ideas and opinions, to try to explore what wisdom might be out there. Sometimes I tell people, if you contained all knowledge in the world in a circle, then one part of that circle is what you know. One other small part of that circle is what you know you don't know. But 99% of that circle is what you don't know you don't know. That could be a song. In other words, when you're feeling lost, remind yourself there's a whole circle of knowledge out there that I don't know. And maybe the knowledge in that part of the circle has the answer to get me to where I need to go. But I'm only going to be able to access it if I question, if I challenge, if I put myself in growth environments, if I approach individuals and explore wisdom literatures that help me to broaden my horizon. Yeah.
Very well. Because of my number of reasons. I feel this topic today was really relevant, and I have a personal connection or personal experience with failure as well. This was very deep. My first marriage didn't work out, so I failed with my first marriage, and I feel and for some reason I feel I needed this talk as well to to reflect and to accept that it was not really a complete failure. There was something a blessing in disguise, and which is well. And if that didn't go according to plan, I'm so blessed, so grateful. I got to meet with my current wife, Rajataruni, and this was a connection, and a blessing in disguise. And thank you again, Maharaj, for coming to Sydney. And it's like Patitu Pawan Jagannath that devotees sometimes don't get the privilege of going inside the temple, and Jagannath comes to the street to give his blessings. Very well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. All right, yeah, maybe the final question.
Thank you so much, Maharaji, for a beautiful lecture, beautiful discourse. I'm just wondering, and please share or not share as you like it. I'm wondering, in a monk's life, can you give an example of a very big failure that you've encountered? Or from your colleagues? Or you might not share if you're not comfortable.
It's a monk's life. A failure from a monk's life. Many failures. Projects, relationships. Perhaps one failure that I encountered a lot in my life was when I was growing up in life, and probably still, my personality is quite shy and introverted, actually. And public speaking was the last thing I wanted to do. And when I joined the monastery, they were like, this is part of the deal. You've got to speak to people. You've got to share wisdom. It's what people are looking for. It's the need of the day. And I said, but I'm not, not a public speaker. And they said, it doesn't matter. And when I was like 21, I started giving talks. And I failed miserably. And I still do actually sometimes. Oftentimes I was in events where everyone just looked like they were going into a coma. Just not connecting, just not communicating, just not reaching people. And it was frustrating. I was like, I would come back from a talk like that and I would be like, never again. I'm just not going to put myself in that situation again. This is torture. But the monks didn't let me. And they said, go back to the drawing board. If you didn't connect, if you didn't communicate, ask yourself, why didn't you communicate? Why didn't you connect? Did you take the time to get to know your audience? And then I went back to the drawing board, and before I went to give another talk, I asked myself, what are their needs? What are their interests? What are their concerns? Let me give it another shot. And like that, over time, I'm not saying I'm the best public speaker in the world, but I've learned how to somewhat try to communicate. But it all began from failure. And I appreciated that now. And even now, sometimes I speak and I feel like not connecting, not meeting the audience, here but not really here. But then I just go on and I realize there'll be another talk, there'll be another opportunity, there'll be another audience, and next time I'll try and do a little bit better. Djokovic said he won 80% of the matches that he played in. But when he analyzed the points, he only won 50% of the points. In other words, you can lose 50% of the points and still win 80% of the matches, because a point is just a point. And therefore, even nowadays, when I do a talk and sometimes I feel like, I didn't really, it's all right. I tried my best. Move on. Try and do better. Try and become a better instrument. And like that, a point is a point.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hope that helps. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Keshava Swami. This was definitely not one of the spell talks. I'm sure everyone feels very connected to you. So if you can again join me with a big round of applause, man.